very excited today to do this webinar together with Soma, who brings a lot of experience in the world of Microsoft on the product side, the world of investing, and has been in the data space for a while as an investor and participating in the board of Snowflake. So I'm hoping that we're going to have an engaging and insightful conversation that a lot of our audience will benefit. Soma, thank you so much for joining us here, and welcome to our webinar.
Thanks, Kima. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to chat with you on a variety of fun things, and to all of you for tuning in and spending the next hour with us. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, before we dive into some of your experiences, maybe give us a quick 1 or 2 minute background about yourself.
Got it. Great. So, I had started my career after finishing school at Microsoft, and ended up staying there for a little longer than I thought I would stay. So I ended up with almost about 27 years at Microsoft, and mostly working on building and delivering products on the platform side of the house. Started with for those of you who even remember this, Microsoft used to be working on an operating system called OS2, and that's where I started my career. And then went to NT, which then became Windows. So I was there for quite a bunch of time delivering multiple versions of Windows, and then moved over to running the developer division at Microsoft, which is and that group was responsible for building all the developer runtimes and developer platforms and developer tools and developer services and developer runtimes kind of thing. So, and if you are a developer that wants to build something, an application, a service, or whatever it is on top of the Microsoft platform, chances are my team was responsible for delivering something to you in one way, shape, or form, right? So things like Visual Studio, things like .NET Framework, things like Visual Studio Team System. And actually, the one fun story is the very last product that I launched while at Microsoft is hopefully something that a lot of developers would know today about, called Visual Studio Code. That was like the last product that I launched when I left Microsoft, kind of thing, right? So I was at Microsoft for almost 27 years, and then transitioned from being an operator at Microsoft to being a venture capitalist. And I joined Medina Venture Group, which is the leading venture capital firm in Seattle, and have been a managing partner there since then. And for the last 5.5 years, I've been looking at investing primarily in companies that are what I call enterprise facing or B2B facing companies, up and down the stack, starting from cloud infrastructure to data platforms, including Snowflake, to SaaS, to machine learning and AI and intelligent applications and the like. So anything up and down the stack as it relates to selling to a business or an enterprise, I sort of look at that and say hey, is this something that we should be a part of?
Interesting. Before we talk about data and later Snowflake as well, I'm curious, in your time at Microsoft, which platform, which product you're most fond of that brings good memories releasing it?
It's like asking which baby do you like the most?
It should be easier with software.
I should tell you, if I sort of think about all of that, I would say, probably Visual Studio and .NET Framework, I would say, because it's sort of Microsoft has always been a platform company first and foremost. Okay. And when you think about the world through a platform lens, what you really are focused on is providing a set of services, a set of tools that enable others to be able to build some phenomenal experiences on your platform. And there was nothing better than sort of running developer division, which really focuses on how do I take care of the developer audience, right? Which is probably the most strategic and the most important audience for all of Microsoft kind of thing. So being able to deliver world-class tools in Visual Studio and a framework in .NET that really took the enterprise world forward in terms of make it easy to be able to build line of business applications or enterprise applications. So I feel really, really proud of the work that we did there.
I'm probably going to upset half of the audience, but I can probably say that Visual Studio has been the best IDE that was ever released. I had a chance to work with the C# team when I was part of Business Objects, releasing Crystal Reports, which was embedded inside Visual Studio. and I earned a lot of they earned a lot of respect from me. The team was pretty outstanding. Did you, as you were working inside Microsoft, I know you're working on developer tools, operating systems, but did you have insight into what Microsoft viewed when it comes to data and cloud before you left, right?
Absolutely.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why I say that, because though we were working on developer tools and developer runtimes, hey, we were working closely with the SQL Server team, okay, for thinking about hey, how do you enable people to write stored procedures in .NET, right? Or even tools that people can use. Again, SQL Server came from out of our world, okay? So we worked closely with the SQL Server team. Similarly, for Azure, we sort of ended up owning hey, building all the developer tools and some of the runtimes for Azure as well. And so we used to, one of the advantages of being in dev or developer division at Microsoft is you get to work with pretty much every platform team inside the company, because you are sort of the glue that brings developers together on top of the platform kind of thing. So to go back to your question, Kima, the way I would think about it is data, let's start with data, okay? As late as or as early as I should say, the late 80s, Microsoft had been thinking about hey, data is is important, data is meaningful, what should we do about it kind of thing. And I think it was about 1990 or so that we started our efforts on what ended up becoming SQL Server, okay? And so right from there, we were sort of hey, we know that data is only going to be increasing in importance, increasing in priority. And you can talk about structured data, you can talk about a SQL, you can talk about NoSQL, you can talk about unstructured data, you can talk about semi-structured data, but the world is going to only see an explosion of data, and we need to figure out how we can help the world, both in terms of organizing and in terms of being able to make sense of that data kind of thing, right? So that has been a core part of Microsoft's what I call strategy or vision right from the very early days. And SQL Server ended up being one of the fastest growing, one of the largest businesses for Microsoft. And then hey, in the sort of mid to late 2000s, we started sort of paying more attention to the cloud and thinking about hey, cloud is here to stay, cloud is the future, and and we have a sort of what I call a substantive on-premises business, particularly as it relates to enterprise, between Windows Server and SQL Server, our management tools, our developer tools. We had a whole suite of offerings for the on-premises world. What does it mean for us to get to the cloud? And we started working on Azure, and the rest, as you know, is history kind of thing. But even while I was at Microsoft, we were fully all in on data first. And then at the right point in time, you could argue, in fact, hey, did we come to the party a little later? Maybe, but we got in early enough that I think Azure is sort of doing really well in the market today, is one of the top 2 cloud providers in the world, so to speak, kind of thing. And that's a testament to how Microsoft, though we had probably the largest, and the most what I call successful on-premises server business across a variety of products, we sort of made the switch to say hey, cloud is here, and let's go go to the cloud as fast as we can kind of thing. And the transition is a wonderful story unto itself.
Yeah, absolutely. My background, I've been in the cloud for such a long, on the Amazon website, on the competitive side. I do respect Microsoft for what they were doing, and now I'm benefiting from working with Snowflake, where I can work with any cloud, right, that Snowflake supports. So that allows me, allows me to have my multi-cloud cake and eat it at the same time, because Snowflake works with all of them. Before we talk about Snowflake, though, being a successful operator at Microsoft, you ended up becoming a venture capitalist. What was your thought process? How did you transition?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kima, and I'm going to try and give you the short version, but that itself might take a little bit of time, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible, right?
Yeah.
I'm what I call myself an accidental venture capitalist. Okay. In other words, I wasn't sitting and dreaming someday oh my God, I really need to become a venture capitalist someday. How am I going to do that? When am I going to do that? It wasn't that at all. Okay. I had been working at Microsoft for a very long time, and I thought that I would probably retire from Microsoft and that's it kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after about 25 years or so, I started thinking about hey, 25 years of my professional career is done. What should I be thinking about for the next 25 years kind of thing? Okay. And I started thinking about hey, what am I doing at Microsoft? What am I learning? What is the impact that I'm having? And everything was all looking good and going well. And I thought that hey, I could do this maybe for another 10 years, maybe for another 12 years. but I started feeling that like, hey, in the next 10 to 12 years, I might reach a stage where like, I feel like, hey, I've done enough of this. Let me sort of, be done with this kind of thing. And then I got panicked because like, hey, if I'm going to reach that stage in 10, 12 years, then what the hell do I do after that? Okay. Yeah. And my sort of interest in learning, or it's not interest, my ability to learn something new, in my opinion, is only going down as opposed to increasing in terms of velocity. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was also clear that if I ever left Microsoft, I was probably done working for a technology company. And the reason I say that is because if working for a technology company is exciting, for me, Microsoft is still as good as it gets, right? Yeah. It's a fantastic company, a very broad footprint in terms of in terms of the kinds of technologies that they are working on. It's a great company. I know a lot of the people there. Why would I trade that off for going and working in some other technology company? So I was sort of in this weird mode of like, hey, if I work, I'm going to be working only at Microsoft, but I want to be doing something for the next 25, 30 years. And my heart tells me that in the next 10 years, I may reach a point where I may be sort of thinking I'm done, which I didn't want to. So I said, okay, I need to figure out something else new, right? And because I'd sort of in my head thought that like I wasn't going to go work for another company, it quickly boiled down to me that I had only two choices. Okay. One choice was, let me go. If I had some brilliant idea, let's say, that I was willing to give the next 10 years of my life to, I could have gone and started my own company. And I can tell you, I did like, sort of, fudge around with that for like, a few months. But I realized that like, I wasn't coming up with something that I was so energized and so excited that I was ready to sign up for 10 years. And it felt like, hey, the other option in front of me, the other choice in front of me is to use all the ability and experience and operating skills and knowledge of the industry and technology that I had, and be able to work with the next generation entrepreneurs and be able to help them build the next generation companies. So I said, like, actually, as I was thinking, leaving Microsoft, I said, like, hey, let me go learn what it means to be an investor. Okay. And if I go to like that, and if I think I can do that for the next 25 years, then I'll do it. If not, I'll sort of come back and really think harder about any ideas that I might have to be able to start a company kind of thing. And the rest is history, right? Because it's been 5.5 years now, and I'm having a lot of fun. And so like that was the transition that I went through, going from sort of being an operator at Microsoft to being a venture capitalist at Moderna Venture Group.
Interesting. Yeah, being an entrepreneur is a game of obsession and anxiety. I can attest to that. the number of hours I'm obsessing over the business every day, it's almost a 24/7. So if you're not excited about what you're trying to build, you're signing up for a lot of anxiety. Is there something specific you look at when you're making investment decisions? Like what makes one investment better than another in your experience?
I think, like, particularly, maybe that's a great question, Kima. But before I answer that, let me just give you a little bit of context about what we do at Moderna, so that might help you think about, because investment, like, you can be like, early stage investor, or mid stage investor, later stage investor, or whatever else it is, kind of thing, right? So Moderna has been around for like, about 26 years in Seattle. Okay. And we are predominantly what I call an early stage venture capital firm, focused on investing in information technology. So companies at the seed stage or Series A stage is our sweet spot. Okay. And historically, this is what we've been doing for the last 26 years, and it has worked out really, really well for us. But then about 3-4 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago, we started thinking about like, hey, we now have experience investing from day one for the long run with all these companies. We've seen a number of these companies scale to a considerable size and scope and scale, and get to the IPO milestone and be publicly traded companies. So we have that experience. We also have experience in certain technology areas, whether it is cloud infrastructure, being like, Seattle being the cloud capital, or whether it is ML and AI, given what is happening in town kind of thing. So we felt that we had some, deep expertise in a few technology areas. We had seen enough companies that go through from a very early stage to a very late stage kind of thing. So we thought like, hey, we have enough experience and capability to be able to invest in companies at the mid stage, or what we call acceleration stage, companies that are raising Series B or Series C, or even occasionally Series D kind of thing. So we raised a second fund. Okay. So we today have two funds that we deploy out of, one that is seed and Series A focused, and one that is Series B and Series C focused. So we have a platform that enables us to invest from the day one. to a mid stage of the company kind of thing. Okay. And so that's what we do. Okay. And when we think about early stage, very early stage investments, right? Oftentimes we meet entrepreneurs who are like, hey, I think I have an idea. I may have a slide deck, or I may not have a slide deck or a pitch deck, but that's all I have, right? And I might have a co-founder. So you are starting to have to make decisions about investing in a company at that stage. Okay. Now, when the company has made some progress, it's reached a Series B or Series C, then it is different, because then you think about like, hey, do you have product market fit? Okay. What are your customers saying? Okay. What is your land and expand strategy? What is your net retention rate looking like? Though it's early days, right? But you have a set of metrics and enough signal or data from the market and from customers to be able to give us some kind of view into, hey, do we believe that this is a big play or not, kind of thing. But when you're talking about early stage, you don't have any of that, right? So to answer your question specifically, Kima, particularly for early stage companies, for me, it starts with the caliber of the team. Okay. And the caliber of the team may be just caliber of the founder, or maybe a couple of co-founders kind of thing, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the people that are going to either make or break. Okay. So to me, like, I need to, and it's almost like, it's a combination of what have you accomplished and what do I see in terms of, your values, your attributes, how you think about things, your passion for what you're trying to do, and whether you have what it takes to persevere and to be able to navigate the twists and turns and be able to create some huge enterprise value, right? So for me, it starts with the team. Once sort of you get conviction on the team, then you think about, broadly speaking, at least, what is the problem space that they're going after, and whether that problem space is a real problem that we think hey, people are going to want to see a solution right away, or is this one of those nice to have things that people may get there or may not get there kind of thing. Hey, we sometimes refer to it as hey, are you building a painkiller or are you building a vitamin? Okay. Knowing that you're building a painkiller makes it even more exciting. Okay. And the third thing is really hey, how big is your vision? How big is your dream? Or how big is the opportunity size? Okay. Is it going to be what I call a multi-billion-dollar business? Is it going to be a $50 million business? What is it going to be, kind of thing? And being able to get a view on hey, what the opportunity size could look like. So those are the three things I look for in saying hey, is this something that makes sense for us? Should we be leaning in and should we be investing? The fourth thing, which is important both for us and for the entrepreneur, is hey, are we the right partners for you? We have a certain set of skill set, we have a certain set of experience, we do things in a particular way, we can be helpful in certain things. Is that what you're looking for? Is that what is going to be most helpful to you, most useful to you as you build the company, as you scale the company, kind of thing? And if the answer is yes, then we are absolutely want to do that.
Awesome. I know you have a particular interest in companies that are seeing potential in using data, machine learning, AI to accelerate innovation. Let's put Snowflake aside for a moment. Do you think there is an area, a segment where you think that potential has already been realized or is about to make a difference?
Yeah, I would say that broadly speaking, we sort of coined the term, or we use the term intelligent applications. Okay. By that, what I mean is hey, we think in the last 10 years or 12 years, right, it's all been about SaaS. Okay. People said hey, forget the on-premises application model, it's all going to be delivered as a service from the cloud, kind of thing. And that's sort of been what has happened for the most part in the last decade or so. Moving forward, what we think is going to happen is every application that gets built today, or that's going to be running of any scale or size, is going to be what we call an intelligent application. By intelligent application, what we really mean is hey, every application has got access to some data. How does the application build a continuous learning system using the data through ML or AI or other techniques, kind of thing? And how can you continuously improve your application with more data? You have data, you sort of use the data to do better. You do better, you get more data, you use the data. So there is a flywheel that goes there, right, to build the continuous learning system. So we think hey, every application and every vertical, every use case in enterprises and businesses is going to be an intelligent application. Starting with hey, how should I think about the future of work? Okay. How do I build the next generation productivity tools for my employees? Okay. How do I better engage with my customer? How do I better understand my customer? how do I better serve my customer, right? You look at pretty much every aspect of what an enterprise is trying to do today. There is data, and there is an opportunity to use ML and AI to say, how can we be smarter about both understanding and being able to respond to more appropriate delivery in the process kind of thing, right? So that, I think, is something that we've seen happening in the last, like, let's say 3, 4, 5 years kind of thing. But it is nowhere being done. It's still sort of very, very early days in terms of the scratching the surface and the progress that people have made. We think the next decade, next 2 decades, it's all going to be about how, you know, applications and enterprises are going to become more and more intelligent kind of thing. And so we are very excited to be investing in, broadly speaking, what we call intelligent applications.
I love that framing. I mean, AI ML becomes tools, right? These are ways to make intelligence applications. There are probably other ways we can make intelligent applications that are not invented yet. And hopefully platforms like Snowflake enable a lot of that. Data becomes central. So if you start building applications on top of a platform like Snowflake, it's all about data. Compute is in the background. It's there when you need it, but it's really not about compute. It's about data. Which I love that framing of intelligent applications. Which brings us to Snowflake. If you can share, how did you go about in deciding, like Madrona and you deciding to invest? How did you evaluate, and what made the decision to invest in the business? Right, it was early on, so it fits your framework as you were describing, early and mid stage, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, like, you know, that first of all, there is a certain amount of luck as well involved. So I don't want us to forget about that. But you put that aside, and I would say, like, you know, there are probably like 3 or 4 things that I can think of that gave us, like, you know, a very high level of conviction that we wanted to invest in Snowflake, you know, when we decided to invest in Snowflake. And let me walk you through those things. Okay. As I mentioned before, Kima, I always think about the team. Okay. So for me, first and foremost, like, you know, Bob Muglia was the CEO of Snowflake when we invested. And I had known Bob when he was at Microsoft. I've had the chance to work with Bob. And I felt really good about, like, you know, Bob as a leader, particularly, like, you know, this is the interesting anecdote. Back in the early 90s when Bob joined, or late 80s / early 90s when Bob was at Microsoft, the early days of Microsoft, Bob ended up being the first product manager for SQL Server.
Oh, wow.
So his engagement with data or involvement with data goes back, like, you know, 3 decades or so now. Okay. So having Bob at the helm of Snowflake, that was one reason why we thought, you know, hey, there is something interesting here kind of thing. The second thing is, remember, go back, this is now, like, you know, 4 years ago or 5 years ago kind of thing. As much as today we think, like, you know, hey, cloud is absolutely here, everybody is okay with putting data in the cloud. When the Snowflake guys started with Snowflake, it wasn't obvious at all that, like, you know, hey, everybody is going to put their data into the cloud. In fact, like, you know, pretty much most everybody would tell you, like, you know, hey, you know, others may put their data in the cloud, but my data is special. My data, I need to think about regulations. I need to think about compliance. I need to think about this. I need to think about data sovereignty. So I'm going to have control of my data kind of thing, right? But here comes a company that says, like, you know, hey, I'm going to take a bet that sooner or later everybody is going to put their data in the cloud, and I'm going to think about, like, you know, all the things that enterprises care about, like, you know, thing I talked about: privacy, security, you know, scale, data sovereignty, right? Global access to data. I'm going to think about all these things, and I'm going to build a platform that enables you to do that kind of thing. Okay, that I thought was a bold bet when the rest of the world was still thinking about, like, you know, hey, is it going to be hybrid? Is it going to be this? How much are going to go to the cloud kind of thing? The other innovation that Snowflake did earlier on was this notion of, like, you know, splitting compute and storage separately. Okay, that I thought was a wonderful piece of innovation that, like, you know, now everybody talks about it and everybody, oh my God, yeah, that's so natural kind of thing. But Snowflake was the one who sort of said, like, hey, there is an opportunity here for us to add real value by being able to think about these two separately and sort of letting customers, you know, take advantage of that. Okay, that I thought was great. So to me, like, you know, hey, some of the product bets and the product innovation that the company has done was great. The third piece is, like, you know, because we are in Seattle, we know a lot of people at Microsoft, we know a lot of people at Amazon kind of thing. It was very interesting because we would talk to, like, you know, these large cloud providers. And remember, all these guys have got, like, you know, what I call competing offerings in the market against Snowflake. And even back then, some of them had, and we knew that everybody was going to get there, right? We would talk to the product group guys in these companies, and they would say, like, you know, oh my God, Snowflake is amazing. Snowflake is fantastic kind of thing. Okay. But they would say like, hey, but know that we have a competing product and we have the platform, the underlying cloud infrastructure platform. So we are going to be competing and we are going to win this space, right? That was the tone of the conversation that you had at the product group with. You go to the sales guys in these companies, they'll tell you, oh my God, I'm really worried about Snowflake. Okay. I'm starting to see more and more Snowflake in every customer conversation kind of thing, right? So even though it was still early days for the company, remember when we invested in Snowflake, right? That was the year that Snowflake was going from a $3 million revenue run rate to about a $15 million revenue run rate. So we were in the middle of that. So it was still very early days, but just hearing like, the tone of the feedback from these large cloud providers was a sign, okay? Was a positive sign for us. And the fourth thing was the following. When we talked to Bob back then, it was interesting that Bob said like, hey, I'm sort of seeing a pattern emerging, okay? And this was back then, okay? I'm seeing customers coming up and saying like, hey, I love what you're saying about Snowflake. Let me sign up for Snowflake and let me start using it, okay? And let me start with like, hey, maybe a 10K, maybe a 20K commitment to Snowflake. So not a big commitment, but something small, right? Yeah. But then what happens is like, I start seeing customers, start with that. They play around with it. They like it. They put more data. And in about 6 quarters, they go from 20K to about 175 to 200K of commitment to Snowflake. And I'm just seeing this pattern repeat again and again and again, even for the early stage that we are in. Yeah. So we looked at all these and said like, hey, there is something, and I'll be the first to tell you, did I think, Snowflake was going to be a $70 billion valuation company within a year of like going IPO? No, I can tell you, if I told you that I knew that, I'm lying, okay? But I knew that there was something special happening here, that there is a potential for a large, success here. And so we decided to invest in Bob and Snowflake back then.
Market valuation is a separate webinar. It's going to take a long time to discuss that. It's the business I care about. You did mention the separation of storage and compute as one of the topics, and it was a key strength that drove some of the growth so far. But I'm curious, from your vantage point, what do you think are some of the key strengths of Snowflake today that will drive opportunities for growth over the next few years?
That's another great question. So Snowflake, when it started, okay, it was all about like, hey, how do I build a data warehousing solution? Okay, that's going to be on the cloud, built for the cloud, and in the cloud kind of thing. Okay, so they started with a fresh design for like, how do I build something from scratch that's a cloud-based service that has all the attributes of the cloud or takes advantage of all the attributes of the cloud, but it was primarily a data warehousing solution. Okay, then over a period of time, they started thinking about like, hey, one other problem that is a huge problem in the world of data is ability to share data across teams or across companies or across organizations, okay? And historically, the way that most people would do it is like, hey, they would say, go to some ETL set of tools, right? Hey, let me import some data from a database or a data store, okay? Let me do some magic. Let me send it over the wire on the other side. Let me do some more magic. Let me import it into another system. It is just a painful, costly, and sort of not the most reliable operation that people had for really sharing data. But particularly in a world of interconnected, sort of what I call SaaS services world, there is more and more requirement, more and more demand for people to want to be able to share data seamlessly kind of thing. And it's been a problem that has largely been unsolved, in my opinion, at least for the last 30, 40 years, okay? Snowflake came out with a view and architecture and a solution that said like, hey, if you're and Snowflake did put a constraint, which is you need to have Snowflake on both ends. Meaning I need to be using Snowflake and you need to be using Snowflake, and then sharing data is a no-brainer. So at least like, hey, if you are a Snowflake customer, okay, you can share data in a very, very seamless way, and you can decide whether you want to share your entire data set or partial data set or whatever you want to be able to do. As long as the other person has a Snowflake account, sharing becomes instantaneous and seamless, okay? And we think data sharing in the fullness of time could be as large as data warehousing in some sense, okay? Yeah. That was the next step that Snowflake did. And suddenly we felt, oh, there is more, the energy and like, the optimism and the future potential just, doubled in some sense, I would say. And then as the company started evolving, they said like, hey, you have cloud infrastructure, okay? You got Azure, you got AWS, you got GCP, you got Ali Cloud, you got a variety of clouds kind of thing. Is there particularly with data being like, a core part of what the future is all about, is there an opportunity for a data cloud? Okay. And Snowflake really expanded its vision to say like, hey, can Snowflake be the data cloud platform that enables like, a variety of scenarios, a variety of, storage capabilities, including unstructured data storage capability. Think about like, relational data, think about, non-relational data, analytics data, think about like, what ML AI guys want to do. Think about what the next generation application developers want to do with a storage system like Snowflake. So really making the evolution to a full-fledged data platform or a data cloud platform is why I think like, Snowflake has got amazing amount of future and potential for the coming decades.
Awesome. Yeah, the data sharing, to be honest, is one of my favorite subjects. I love talking to customers about it. It's a new way of integrating data across businesses. I know some companies are even looking to put the whole supply chain on a private exchange. Do you have any views or experience on how once an organization embraces data sharing on Snowflake, how it impacts their business, and what's the relative importance of that as a driver to accelerate their digital transformation?
Right. So the first thing to realize is like, every company is now thinking about like, digital transformation. Okay.
Yeah.
Every company realizes that like, hey, they need to like, sort of be on the cutting edge of, technology adoption to be able to better engage with their customers, to be able to do better whatever they want to do. And the other realization that goes hand in hand with digital transformation is people realize what a phenomenal asset they have in data, or they can have in data, and how do they use that, like, for meaningful ways to advance their business. Okay.
Yeah.
And you think about like, hey, data for the most part, like you talk to an enterprise CIO or a CTO, one of the problems they'll tell you about data is like, hey, I know I have a lot of data. I know I have a lot of valuable data, but guess what? My data is all siloed. Okay. Every system has got its own store, and every system has got its own data kind of thing. And there is no easy way for me to be able to think about like, how can I look at my data holistically? Okay. And then figure out what I can do with it. A system like Snowflake enables you to do that. Now, even Snowflake would tell you that like, hey, if you want to bring all of your data into Snowflake, that is great, but you can do that at your own pace. It's not like, you need to bring all of the data that you have in your enterprise into Snowflake day one for you to be able to take advantage of all the capabilities that Snowflake has. And part of it is to say like, hey, you bring some data into it for you to be able to share that data with other parts of your company or with some of your partners or customers, enable them to have Snowflake accounts, and boom, they can start accessing data, right? They don't need to put in more data yet. If they want to put in, sure, Snowflake would love the world's data to be on Snowflake someday. So that's not an issue, right? But you don't need to wait for all pieces of data to be there to start seeing the value of Snowflake and data sharing kind of thing. Like, and today everybody works with like, their partners, their customers, right? They want to be able to share data, but they can't. Snowflake enables you to do that seamlessly.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the audience remembers the days of EDI and platforms like Bstock for doing data exchanges. I think everybody reverts to exporting CSVs and putting them on FTPs and importing them on the other side. And I do want to give a chance to the audience if there are any questions. I wanted to check with our marketing team if there are any questions. Looks like there are no questions so far. If anybody is interested, feel free to drop a question. I do wanted to talk a little bit about data engineering. It's an emerging discipline and the related agile approach for working with data that everybody seems to call data ops these days. Do you have views on the importance of data engineering to the success of typical data analytics or data science projects?
Sure. This is sort of what I call both a healthy tension, and if approached properly can give like, a force multiplier effect. Okay. Data science people, okay, data analysts or data science people, they are focused on like, hey, I'm like, I want to go build a model because I'm trying to get to a particular outcome and I want to get there as fast as I can. Everything else is irrelevant to me. Okay. I want to do that. Okay. The data engineer says like, hey, I'm all about like, building, data pipelines and data ingestion things and data cleansing things. And like, I want to build a infrastructure, okay, that is going to enable me to operate on my data at scale in the most optimal way. Okay. Now, to me, like, the point of convergence between data science and data engineering is where organizations have the opportunity to really have a force multiplier effect, or have a significant step function in terms of what they are able to do, right? But know that there is inherently a little bit of tension, because like, data science guys look at the data engineering guys and say like, hey, you're just slowing me down. And the data engineering guys are looking at the data science guys, say like, hey, you guys are running so fast, you're going to get it off your skis here. So we need to work together, right? But think about the point of convergence, where data engineers can help you build a robust and scalable infrastructure for what you want to do with data, kind of thing, right? So to me, like, hey, there is, and every company actually of any consequence today will tell you, we need more data engineers. We need more data engineers. We need more data engineers, right? It's a much sought after commodity. But know that like, data engineers and data science people, the more they understand the value that each other bring and can work together collaboratively, I think, you can do phenomenal things, unlocking the value of data that you have in your enterprise or in your business environment.
Yeah, we have a view that data engineering is about removing friction, enabling more experiments, enabling more access to data to more data analysts, data scientists, data architects, so they can work with the data, build algorithms, develop models, enable self-service models for the rest of the organization to access the data. So I completely agree with you. I have a fun question. Every investor is proud of the investment they made that worked out. Are you able to share something that some investment you didn't make and you regret because you missed a good opportunity?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you, like, hey, like, I sort of, bucketize the world or startup investments into three categories. Okay. Places where I invested and then I regretted that I invested. Okay. Places where I invested and I'm so happy that I invested, and places where I didn't invest and I'm sort of, regretting that I didn't invest. So it's there. Every venture capitalist goes through that kind of thing. Okay. Having said that, I'll tell you, like, to me, like, there are two things that happen here. Okay. One is, sometimes we get a chance to invest in a company, we don't invest in the company, and then that company just continues to run, and we are never able to get into that. Okay. That one I sort of regret a little more. Okay. And then there are companies where, like, hey, we decide not to invest, but then we suddenly wake up a year or two later and decide that, like, hey, that was a mistake, we should fix it, and we have the opportunity to get in. It's a little later, but it is still okay, or it's still great, kind of thing. Let me give you two examples here. Okay. Now, there is a company called Coda, okay, which is a company that is reimagining productivity experiences. Okay. They sort of think about the world as like, hey, the lines between an application and a document are blurring. Okay. They're one and the same. And the second thing is, I want to have, like, one canvas that lets me think about text, that lets me think about tables, that lets me think about charts, that lets me think about visualization, data, all of the above, and make it live. So it's sort of, why do I need Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all these different canvases and different tools? Let me just have one canvas that enables me to do all of these in a seamless way, kind of thing, right? So they're really reimagining what it is. This is a company, I've known the CEO for a while, and he and I had a chance to catch up and chat, like, let's say 2 years ago. And at the time I decided that, like, hey, I wasn't ready to invest in Coda. But even as I made the decision, I knew that, like, hey, I might have been making a wrong decision here, kind of thing. So I stayed in touch with Shishir, who's the CEO of the company. And then a year later, there was another chance, and I said, I'm going to do it now, right? So I'm so glad today, looking back, that I got a chance to do it when I did it. Could it have been better if I did it the previous year? Sure, but it's okay, kind of thing. Okay. Let me give you another example where, like, we didn't do it, right? Auth0 is a company that sort of, most people know about, like, identity service kind of thing. And it's a Seattle company, right? So sort of our hometown. Okay. Earlier on, like, we looked at Auth0 a couple of times, and we sort of, for some reason or other, we didn't come to the finish line, kind of thing. And since then, we've always regretted, like, hey, I know this is a company that we should have been a part of. This is a company we should have been a part of. And congratulations to Auth0 team for having a fantastic journey and a fantastic exit into Okta. And now they are sort of part of Okta, and they're going to continue driving their vision. But that's one, like, that I feel like, hey, we missed. So.
Yeah, that I can understand the regret there. They've done really well. They've done really well. I do have something a little self-indulgent. First of all, I want to express my gratitude for trusting my business, Infostrux, and advising us and investing in the business as we are trying to help companies with data engineering, specifically around Snowflake. We have this concept of certified data sets that we talked to you early on when we were discussing about launching the business. And the goal is to architect and model the data inside Snowflake to meet high standards, right? Things like quality, reliability, security. And when we talked about our business model, you felt that our thinking is aligned with the needs in the market. So can you share a little bit of your thinking, why you think businesses need to invest in reliable data models inside platforms like Snowflake? It's not just about the infrastructure, but it's actually what you do with the data inside Snowflake, and that's still data engineering.
Absolutely, yeah. And I remember this conversation that you and I had, like, it must have been like 6 months or 9 months ago now, like, kind of thing, right? About this, certified data sets kind of thing, right? See, to me, like, the way I think about it is the following, reliable data models are absolutely essential, okay, for a company to align itself on a common framework and a set of metrics that enable everybody to build a shared understanding of the business. Because the more you have a shared understanding of the business, then you can think about, like, hey, how do I think about, like, what are the key inputs to my business decisions? What are the key inputs to my performance evaluation, right? How do I think about the data with the common set of nomenclature, okay, to be able to do all the right things and get all the value that I can get out of a data set that I can trust, and it needs to be trusted kind of thing, okay? Now, when everybody in the organization trusts the same data models and trust the same metrics, then, like, the whole company can think about, like, hey, where do I need to focus? What do I need to improve, whether it's in the short term, medium term, or long term, and then be able to row in the same direction, okay? Now, if you are one of these companies or one of these customers that decide, like, hey, I'm going to take Snowflake and I'm going to build these data models, these reliable data models in Snowflake, the advantage is you have a single source of truth for the company at large, okay? All the different teams that are looking at it from different angles get to work on the same data model and on the same data set kind of thing. And so if you want to think about, like, hey, having the operational infrastructure, okay, that enables you to have, a consistent set of data models or reliable data models for your organization, so that all the downstream, applications and BI work and analytics work that is happening in your company can work off of the same data model. That's a tremendous win-win for your company and for what you're trying to do. And more importantly, for you to be able to have the highest probability of getting value and insight out of the data that you have. So to me, like, having reliable data models and sort of data sets that you can trust, and having it in a system like Snowflake is a fantastic start to how you can use data in meaningful ways to advance your business.
Becomes an enabler, accelerator. I absolutely agree with you. And it's early for us to claim that we've validated the opportunity, but so far, I believe a lot of our customers agree that making data, there's this simple way of putting it, making data useful and reliable, right? If you can give access to data to more people, and if they can rely that data can be trusted, it enables a lot of interesting use cases. We promised the audience that we're going to keep it to 45, but they did get one question from the audience that I think it's a good one to answer if you can squeeze it in. Was there a defining moment at Snowflake pre-IPO where their leadership realized that they had validated the massive opportunity ahead of them and the product market fit in relation to it? Was there like a moment that you remember along the way that said, yep, we validated, we're very, very positive about the future ahead of us?
Yeah. So I would say, like, hey, here's the thing I would say. Let me give you, like, 2 examples, okay? One that is, like, an internal example, and one that is an external example, okay? The internal example was, like, there was a significant performance enhancement that the company was making, okay? the challenge with the performance investments that you make is because because you have sort of what I call split storage and compute, your business model is all relying on compute, not on storage.
Yeah.
Okay. And the faster your queries run, you actually lose revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and in hindsight, when you're not in the thick of things, it's easy to say, yep, it's a no-brainer decision kind of thing. But the company did debate this, hey, what should we do here? Hey, if we do this, in the next quarter, revenue is going to be down. Now, over a period of time, it'll come back up. What should we do, kind of thing? And I was so thrilled to know that it was not a meaningful discussion, because the company was really, really, really convinced that we need to do what is right for our customers, and everything else will fit into its place, right? So to me, that the way the team handled that conversation, the way the team made the decision, I thought was high integrity, high class, and focused on keeping the customer first and foremost, kind of thing. I knew that we got a winning play in our hand. That was one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing was hey, there was without naming names, I would say, one of the leading financial institutions, and financial institutions are a tough nut to crack. Okay. Yeah. Particularly when you tell them hey, are you willing to put your data in the cloud, right? But we had earlier on one very large financial institution that was sort of evaluating Snowflake, and sort of crossed the finish line and said, hey, we think we want to take a bet on Snowflake. And oh, by the way, this is going to be starting with a 7-figure deal, growing quickly to an 8-figure deal, and potentially getting to a 9-figure deal somewhere, right?
Wow. Yeah.
That level of commitment from a financial institution, we felt hey, we had taken a bet that everybody will be willing to come to Snowflake, though Snowflake is running on the public cloud kind of thing. Having a financial institution, particularly early on, say that hey, we are going to take a bet. We felt that was a super or a defining moment that sort of validated all our hypotheses about how this is a non-stoppable journey where people are going to come to the public cloud more and more and more and more, and Snowflake is in the right place at the right time to be able to deliver a phenomenal amount of value to our customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you for that. I would agree. That's a great example. As we wrap up, what is the best place for the audience to learn more about you, your investments, Madrona?
Great. I would say hey, we have our own website, www.madrona.com. We have a lot of information out there that you can sort of, come and learn about us, what we do, and the people that are there in the firm kind of thing. Also, my email address is soma@madrona.com. Feel free to send me a note if you want to chat about ideas that you have, or if you think I can be helpful kind of thing. Those are two ways to sort of reach out to us and continue the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for participating. We'll finish up with the recording and share it with everyone who was not able to join us. This is fun.
Thank you, Kima. Thank you for the opportunity to have this fun conversation. And thank you all for sort of tuning in and listening and taking an hour out of your day and life to be with us on this conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.